Hey guys, welcome to today's comparison. Before we jump into it, let me give you a wrist check. I'm wearing the beautiful SLA023, the new blue Marine Master. I'm really loving this. I'm in the honeymoon phase right now with the watch. But we're going to be talking about these two excellent, affordable divers from Seiko and Orient. And I get this question fairly frequently. Bruce, which one should I buy? Should I buy the Triton? Should I buy the Sumo? Let me do a little head-to-head here. And I'll tell you, I prefer the Sumo. I think the Sumo is the nicer buy. It's a little bit more expensive than the Triton, so they're technically not, it's not the best comparison. I think the Triton compares more favorably to the Seiko Turtle, and I think it's nicer than the Seiko Turtle. So when you compare the Triton to the Sumo, which is a little bit higher of a step up in the price tier, you expect the Sumo to do better. And in most instances, I think it does that. So let me put the dimensions here for the Sumo on the side of the screen. SBDC069. This is a discontinued generation of the Seiko Sumo. It's an excellent watch. I love it. I love the color combination, and you can buy the newest version. Right now there's only green and black. They're coming out with a night series here in February, but the price jumps up to right around $750 to $800. And that's further distinguishes itself, I think, from the Triton, but that's the Sumo. Let's do dimensions for the Triton here on the right. Now, I do know that Orient has changed the name to the Neptune, and honestly, I'm not sure why they did that. Perhaps they had some conflict of copyright or something with the Triton name. I have no idea. I'm going to continue to call it the Triton because that's what I know it as, and I think most of you guys know it as the Triton as well, even though on Orient's website they call it the Neptune now. Now, it's kind of funny, with Orient, their prices are really high when you look at the retail. And then when you look at the going rate, I mean, it's just drastically less. So don't be afraid of the retail price of the Triton. They sell in the low to mid $300 new. I bought mine, I think, for $250, and when I flip out of it, I'll probably sell it for even less than that. So they go for quite a bit less than the going rate. So again, it's not quite an even head-to-head. We're looking at a less expensive watch versus a discontinued, more expensive watch. But I do think it's a fun comparison. So let's get into some of those details. For me, the Sumo is the clear winner, and I love the case finishing here and the overall design. So the Sumo really is the king when it comes to value proposition case finishing. I mean, even for $500, you're looking at this and you see the fluidity of the design, the delineation between the high polish and the fine brushing, and it just looks fantastic, especially in natural light like these video drop-ins. It's just beautiful. And the bulbous nature of the case is so unique. I love how it ties in with this fat, ugly font of the aluminum bezel insert and the fairly narrow bracelet. Some guys don't like this, but I think it's an endearing quality of the Sumo. The 20 millimeter lug width and the bracelet tapers down to 18 millimeters at the clasp. So I find it more comfortable and nicer finished than the Triton. Now the Triton looks excellent in natural light as well, as you guys can see. And the fit is very good, and it's more hefty, it's more weighty. There is just this huge mass of stainless steel in one area, and it looks really, really good. But I would say I do prefer the more narrow bracelet of the Sumo. The 22 tapering down to 20 of the Triton it's decent, but it doesn't lend for extra comfort in my opinion. Now let's talk about dial details. I'll start with the Sumo. I believe most of you will enjoy the Sumo dial more, just for the fact it's a little bit more simple, it's a little bit more clean. The faux applied markers here I think look great. Faux applied meaning Seiko is taking Lume and they're printing it onto metallic discs and then applying those onto the dial. So it's not a deep fill application like what you'd find here on the Marine Master that I'm wearing, but it's a nice look. And the text is clean, the pyramid form of the text above the 6 o'clock position, and the Seiko printing is just clean and simple and balanced. Now, if you contrast that with the Triton, this is where some people are turned off by Orient because they have this really large in-your-face logo that takes up a lot of dial real estate. And although the Seiko does use different fonts for almost every printed element, Orient does as well. And it's the contrast is more, I mean, the fonts are a lot more different to each other than the Seikos are, if that makes sense. Now, I really love the power reserve indicator. This is a point of contention for many people because the power reserve complication, it's generally found on dress pieces and not a sport diver. And I like it on the diver. I think it's awesome. And I love seeing how much reserve I have left in the movement. I love the pop of red. I love the fact that the indicator hand is even loomed, which is really cool. So again, I think more people are gonna like the Sumo dial for its cleanliness and simplicity, but I gotta say personally, I am a fan of the Orient. The only thing I don't like about the Orient's face is the handset. The handset just looks out of place with the white painted seconds hand, and then the deep brushing of the handset and how half of it's black and half of it's brushed. I think it just looks a little silly. And I'd love for them to do something like they do on the Kamisu, where it's just all polish and it looks really good. Now let's do Lume Shot, compare luminescent. They're very similar. I'd say I give the nod again to the Sumo, just for the fact that with longevity, it just does a little bit better than the Triton here on the Orient. I have no idea if it's the same formula. I think it's a different grade because they look a little different and the longevity is a little bit different as well. But still, these are gonna knock the pants off of pretty much any Swiss watch sub $1,000. I mean, it's just really awesome the way the Japanese do low light luminescence. Now let's zoom back out. We'll talk about the movement and we'll wrap this up. I'm gonna put some specs here on the screen. You guys can see the movements are very similar when it comes to beat frequency and jewel count, power reserve. The Sumo has obviously a longer power reserve by about 10 hours, which I prefer. And again, I like the power reserve complication on the Orient, which is just a great feature. So as far as day-to-day accuracy, I found them to both be very similar. My Sumo is a little bit more accurate than my Triton, but you guys can see the specs are very similar. And it's really going to be a luck of the draw scenario for you. You could find you could get a watch that's, 15 seconds off per day. You could get one that's, 1.5 seconds off per day. It really is just a luck of the draw. And I would say I have no preference because they both have similar specs and perform similarly in day-to-day situations. Now lastly, let me compare crown action and bezel action because that's a big deal on a watch, on a diver. So let's start with the Sumo, if I can hold this right. You guys can see it's a nice, pleasant action, very Seiko-like. There's more of a heavy click and then a lighter click. You guys hear that? It's very easy to turn. Everything lines up perfectly. This is the crown action. Nice screw down crown. Very little, if any, wobble. Nice winding action. And then it smoothly screws back down. So I'll place that back down on the table and contrast that with the Triton. Now right off the bat, the Triton has much grippier teeth here on the bezel. They're very sharp and I like that, but you guys can hear it's a totally different sound and feel, and the clicks, again, heavy and light, and it's more pronounced on the Triton. I'd say it's a little bit more mushy. Now again, it's fantastic for the price. These things going for between $250 and $350. It's definitely nicer than what you'd find on a Seiko Turtle easily. But when you compare it to the Sumo, it's just not quite there. And yes, everything does line up perfectly on this. So I declare the winner of the Sumo. Same with the crown action. The crown is more wobbly, as you guys can see. A little bit harder to grip with these crown guards, but that does offer more protection from getting sheared off or getting knocked around. And it's a little bit harder to thread back in. But again, it's great for the price, and that is the theme here. The Triton is hard to beat at that price point. In the Sumo, you would expect it to do better because it's a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit higher up in the tier system. So just in closing, I'm gonna say prefer the Sumo, but if you have a Triton, you have a heck of a watch. And I don't think of another watch that's under or right around that $350 mark that's gonna be a nicer buy or a more enjoyable wear. Maybe the Hamilton Khaki King, but that's not even a dive watch. That's a field watch, and it's got terrible luminescence. It's a very, very different feel, but the Triton, man, it's awesome for the price. The Sumo, get it while you can if you really like this generation with the crazy fat font of the bezel, the handset, the applied markers. The new one I like, but it doesn't quite have the same charm as this generation. So in the end, I like both watches, but the Sumo is going to be the better buy. I think it's worth the premium. If price is an issue, definitely go with the Orient and enjoy it because it really is the best at its price tier. So hopefully that made sense. Let me know if you guys have any other questions, anything you'd like to see. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. Stay tuned for a video of the Blue Marine Master, and I'll see you guys in the comment section. Thanks for watching.